Every fan remembers or hears about the player that just had that insane season for their favorite team, either from a seasoned veteran, a short-lived signing, or a player that came out of nowhere. So using WAR, let's look at the best season a player had for each team.
Totally sports-esque. Major League.
We'll go by division and start in the American League East with the Yankees. And we start with the highest FWAR season of all time with Babe Ruth in 1923 for 14.7 WAR. And what would be his only MVP season because of a rule at the time stating that a player couldn't win twice, it was at least his best season. In a 152-game season, he hit 41 home runs, drove in 130, walked 170 times, with a 545 on base, 764 slug, for a 1.309 OPS, hitting .393, but not winning the batting title, which resulted in him not winning the Triple Crown, as Harry Howman hit .393. Ruth hit more home runs than every team that year, accounting for 10% of every home run hit in the entire league. And what really gave him the highest FWAR was his 1.2 defensive WAR, when he never had a defensive WAR over .2 in any other season. Combine that with a 239 OPS plus and numbers that rivaled entire teams, then that's how you get the highest FWAR, as he would help the Yankees beat the Giants in the World Series.
We'll be back right after these messages.
Today's sponsor is Mova Globes. One of the coolest gifts you could give yourself or anyone you know. These innovative rotating globes harness the power of ambient light and with no batteries of course needed, spin on their own. With a clean, elegant design, officially licensed and available for all 30 MLB teams, they showcase team colors, the logos, and the spirit to keep your favorite team in sight and in motion. The external layer remains stationary, while an internal one spins using advanced magnets for torque and solar cells to power the movement. And again, you don't need any cords or batteries, making it absolutely perfect for coffee tables, your desk, your shelf, or any place you can imagine that will strike up conversation. And along with having designs of all 30 teams, including commemorative Rangers and Dodgers World Series designs, they have over 40 other designs available, including world maps and celestial bodies from NASA and JPL, along with collectibles like basketballs and pieces from Van Gogh. This is an absolute perfect gift for anyone, or just for yourself, and you can use the code SPORTSAS10 to get 10% off. The link will be available in the description and the comments below. And we move on to the Red Sox for another record. A record amongst pitchers belonging to Pedro Martinez in 1999 at 11.6. Always regarded as one of the greatest seasons of all time amongst any players, in the midst of the steroid era, Martinez put up an insane 2.07 ERA with a 2.43 ERA plus and 313 strikeouts for an 8.5 strikeout to walk ratio, winning the Triple Crown, and easily winning Cy Young, and ultimately finishing second in MVP voting, when he really should have won. The reason being that in the time he was pitching, the 4.7 league-wide ERA was the third highest ever, and his was 2.07. And what's crazier is that the second highest league-wide ERA ever took place the next year with a 4.76 ERA, and he had a 1.74 ERA. But it was the 313 strikeouts that really gave him the highest WAR ever recorded by a pitcher. But it actually isn't the highest by a member of the Red Sox. It instead ties Ted Williams' 1946 season at 11.6. While his 1941 season where he hit 406 is his most remembered individual season, after missing 3 seasons because of military service, he came back in 1946 and casually hit 342 with a 497 on base and a 667 slug for a 1.164 OPS, also drawing 156 walks, scoring 156 runs with a 215 OPS plus, as he won his first MVP. His 406 season and his Triple Crown season not good enough for an MVP, but this one was, as he led in just about every category except for any of the 3 Triple Crown stats, as Williams would make his only World Series appearance, but the Red Sox lost to the Cardinals in 7 games. Up next is a team that's quite a bit younger than the Red Sox and the Yankees, and the Tampa Bay Rays, with their best season coming from Ben Zobrist in 2009 at 8.7. 1 year after playing just 62 games and helping the Rays make the World Series, Zobrist's first full season saw him hit 27 home runs, drive in 91, with a 297 average and a 948 OPS, as he made his first All-Star team, leading the league in WAR, but having no real chance to win MVP with the season Joe Mauer had, though he deserved more consideration, in a season where he played 7 different positions, with his defensive WAR accounting for 2.7 of his 8.7 WAR, as the Rays could not return to the playoffs. And we move to the Baltimore Orioles, whose best belongs to their franchise player and Cal Ripken Jr. He gets a lot of opportunity to compile numbers when he plays every game, as long as Kevin Costner is not involved. And 7 years after he compiled a WAR over 10 to lead the league and finished 27th in MVP voting, he topped himself in the entire league in 1991 with a 10.6 WAR. Of course, he played every game and hit 30 home runs for the only time in his career at 34, while recording the most RBIs and the highest average and OPS of his career, while leading in WAR and total bases. He also won the Home Run Derby, as he won his second MVP, being the bright spot on a team that was 28 games under 500. And the last team in the AL East in the Blue Jays belongs to Roger Clemens in 1997 at 10.7. After pitching for the Red Sox for 13 seasons and winning 3 Cy Youngs, he was at his best during his first of 2 seasons in Toronto, winning the Triple Crown with numbers comparable to Pedro in 99. Only Clemens pitched almost 50 more innings with a 2.05 ERA, throwing 9 complete games over 264 innings with 292 strikeouts, as he would win the Cy Young, while also being more deserving of MVP votes, as he was almost as good the next season, as he would win his 5th Cy Young in his last season in Toronto. This again being more impressive for being in a time of high offense, though it is believed that his time in Toronto led to Clemens being one of the faces of the steroid era. So a quick look at the AL East teams, with Babe Ruth obviously having the best season, while also having the best season ever by FWAR. Pedro and Ted behind him, while Clemens just edges Ripken, with Zobrist right behind him. And now we move to the AL Central, and start with the team coming off a great season, and the Chicago White Sox. And while you might guess it's Frank Thomas or Michael Jordan, who didn't strike out once in his White Sox tenure, we have to go way back, like we will for multiple teams, with Eddie Collins in 1915 at 9.3. 1 year after winning his only MVP with the Philadelphia Athletics, he went to the White Sox without a chance to win MVP, though he did deserve it, and a year he would hit .332 with a .460 on base after drawing a league best 119 walks, and stealing 46 bases while compiling a 1.5 defensive WAR, while also leading in fielding percentage for the 5th of 9 times in his career, as he would end as an underrated player from this era. And we move to Minnesota, who also has a player you may not expect because of the names you may guess, with the likes of Rod Carew, Kirby Puckett, and Joe Mauer, as it actually belongs to Burt Blyleven in 1973 at 10.8. After a promising start to his career after debuting at the age of 19, he had his best season at the age of 22, just the first of 2 times he would make the All-Star team, and what immediately jumps out is the fact that he pitched 325 innings with a 2.52 ERA, throwing 9 shutouts and leading the league in WAR, ERA+, and FIP, and he actually finished 7th in Cy Young voting. It should have been Nolan Ryan's year, but Blyleven deserved a lot more recognition. And we move to Detroit and go way back for a name that shouldn't be surprising, in Ty Cobb at 11.5 in 1917. Someone who prioritized hits over home runs and was aggressive on the base paths. In 1917, he would lead the majors in hits, doubles, triples, average, steals, on base, slug, and OPS. Again, not being able to win MVP that year because he already won once, and what was his best all-around year. Even better than the season, where he had a career-high 12 home runs in 1921 and 1925, despite those young kids and their home runs. And maybe the most interesting one here, we move 107 years forward for the Kansas City Royals, with Bobby Witt Jr.'s previous season in 2024 at 10.4. He passed George Brett, who had a 9.1 WAR in 1980, as he was 1 steal away from joining the 30-50 club, while also winning the batting title after recording the most hits, hitting .332 with a 977 OPS, as he helped the Royals make a huge turnaround to make the playoffs. As if it wasn't for Aaron Judge, he would have won MVP. But given his age, there's a chance he topped himself and the franchise record in years to come. And we finish in Cleveland, going back again, not as far back as the dead ball era. We have Lou Boudreau in 1948 at 10.9. The Hall of Fame shortstop who spent 13 years in Cleveland. 1948 was his best season when he hit .355 with a 989 OPS, and most impressive, he compiled a defensive WAR over 3 to lead the league for the 4th time, as he also led the league in WAR and won MVP. And he led Cleveland to their most recent World Series title with a win over the Boston Braves. And not only was he the MVP that season, he was also the manager of the team. So it was a pretty good year for the best season in Cleveland history. And that finishes the AL Central, with a few names from a while ago and one from literally last year. Eddie Collins at the bottom in the division, with Witt, Blyleven, Boudreau, and Cobb in the lead after. And we move to the American League West, and we start with the Texas Rangers, whose best season belongs to Alex Rodriguez in 2002 at approximately 10. 1 year after signing the largest contract in history at the time, at 10 years, $252 million, he would live up to it with his 2002 season, which saw him hit 57 home runs, for the most home runs in a season in the American League since Roger Maris hit 61 in 1961. He also led in RBIs and total bases with a 1.015 OPS, as he also won his first Gold Glove, having the most putouts at short, and finishing 5th in range factor, as he would finish behind Miguel Tejada in MVP voting, which has to be owed to team success, as Rodriguez clearly deserved it more. And we move to the Seattle Mariners, who have plenty of individual seasons that could be here, but it belongs to Ken Griffey Jr. in 1996 at 9.7. The biggest name in the game in the 90s, he had his best season in 96, hitting 49 home runs, driving in 140, with a 1.020 OPS. And more than that, he had his best season defensively with a 3.4 defensive WAR that was the highest in the league, and the only time he finished in the top 10. But it did not result in an MVP, and instead resulted in a 4th place finish. This should have been a race between the two teammates in A-Rod and Griffey, but instead team success played a big role for Juan Gonzalez. And we move now to the team just called the Athletics. If we go by just their time in Oakland, it's Rickey Henderson in 1990, who led the league in runs, steals, OPS, and OPS+, while hitting a career-high 28 home runs for a 10.2 WAR, as he won his only MVP. But the A's franchise goes way back, with relocation being a big part, as they are about to play in their 4th city. But it was their first city in Philadelphia that saw the best season with Jimmy Fox in 1932 at 11.3. And what would be a tie for the second most home runs in the season for most of the 20th century, Fox hit 58 home runs that season, while also driving in 169 with a 1.218 OPS and a 207 OPS+. With modern rules, he would have won the Triple Crown, as Dale Alexander won the batting title, but he only played 124 games. And also 2 of Fox's home runs were taken out of the records as they were in games that were rained out, which would have tied Babe Ruth at 60. But he did win MVP, and he won it again the next season, as he would win the Triple Crown. And we move on to the Houston Astros. While the current era has been the best for postseason success, it was the late 90s and 2000s that saw the first sustained success with teams led by the Killer Bees, with the smaller being Craig Biggio getting the spot here with his 9.3 WAR in 1997. Biggio led the league in runs scored at 146, while also posting a 916 OPS with 22 home runs and 47 steals, while also leading and getting hit by a pitch for the 3rd straight season. He also posted a career-high defensive WAR at 2.3 for his only top 10 finish, in a tough year of competition with his teammate Jeff Bagwell and Larry Walker, as the Astros won the NL Central, but they would lose in the NLDS. And we move to our final team in the AL West and the entire American League and the Angels. There's plenty of recent players who could be here, and it is a recent player in Mike Trout, with his 10.1 WAR in 2012. In just 139 games, he had a 963 OPS, while leading the league in runs scored and OPS+. And like Bobby Witt Jr., he was one seal away from joining the 30-50 club. He won Rookie of the Year, but that year happened to be Miguel Cabrera's Triple Crown season, though advanced numbers favored Trout. And what's crazy is that this is actually tied for the highest season by an Angel, and the person he is tied with is himself. And he did it the season after, when he again led in runs scored, while walking 110 times, with a higher OPS and OPS+ than the previous season. But again, he finished behind Miguel Cabrera, who had an even better season, though again you could argue for Trout in what wouldn't be his first controversial 2nd place finish. So in the American League West, the best belongs to Jimmy Fox, which is more incredible when you consider what wasn't there. And he's ahead of the 2 Trouts, Alex Rodriguez, Ken Griffey Jr., and Craig Biggio. And in the entire American League, we of course have Babe Ruth at the top, with Ted Williams and Pedro behind them, with Ty Cobb 1 behind, with 7 of these 17 seasons resulting in either a Cy Young or an MVP. And we move to the National League, and we start in the National League East with the Phillies, which belongs to Steve Carlton in 1972 at 11.1. After contract disputes, Carlton was traded from the Cardinals to the Phillies for Rick Wise, and it was an absolute lopsided trade right away. Like Blyleven, what stands out is that he pitched 346.1 innings, and what really stands out is that he had a 1.97 ERA, throwing 30 complete games, while winning the Triple Crown with 310 strikeouts with a 2.01 FIP, as he won Cy Young and finished 5th in MVP voting. With a better year by the Phillies, he probably ends up winning the MVP. And we move to the Washington Nationals. The franchise originates in Montreal, and the best season for the Expos was Pedro Martinez in 1997, where he put up a 1.9 ERA to win his first Cy Young. But the best season including Montreal and DC belongs to Bryce Harper in 2015 at 9.3. In his age 22 season, he had a career-high 42 home runs, which led the league, along with leading in runs, OPS, OPS+, and finishing behind D. Strange Gordon for the batting title. He would unanimously win MVP, becoming the 4th youngest MVP of all time, behind Vida Blue, Johnny Bench, and Stan Musial. And we move to the Mets for a player who for a time had the highest Hall of Fame voting percentage with Tom Seaver in 1971 at 9.1. 2 years after winning his first Cy Young and the World Series, Tom Terrific was at his terrificest in 1971, as he compiled a 1.76 ERA over 286.1 innings, with a .95 whip and 289 strikeouts for a 9.1 K per 9, which was the best in the league. But he actually did not win Cy Young, as it went to Fergie Jenkins. Jenkins started 4 more games and threw 40 more innings, and while he did have a great season, he was not as dominant as Tom Seaver. With wins being a huge stat in the time, it led to Seaver being snubbed. And we move to the Marlins. They're a franchise that likes to trade their players before they hit their peak, but Hanley Ramirez hit his peak quick in 2008 with his 7.4 WAR. 2 years after winning Rookie of the Year, Ramirez joined the 30-30 club after hitting 33 home runs and stealing 35 bases, also leading in runs scored with a 301 average and a 940 OPS, leading the league in putouts for shortstops while also leading in errors. Playing for the Marlins, who looked to be heading in the right direction, but not quite there yet, hurt him in MVP voting as he would finish 11th. And we finished in the NL East with the Atlanta Braves. You would probably assume the season comes from one of the 90s teams or maybe even a recent player, but it actually belongs to Darrell Evans in 1973 at 9.7. In a 20-year career, this season was by far his best, hitting 41 home runs and driving in 104 runners while leading the league in walks at 124 with a 959 OPS. He also played the corner positions and had the second best defensive WAR at 2.2, as he would finish 18th in MVP voting, obviously deserving of more in an underrated career where he had a late power surge as he won World Series with the Tigers and hit 414 home runs in his career. So in the NL East, the best belongs to Steve Carlton, followed by Darrell Evans, Bryce Harper, Tom Seaver, then Hanley Ramirez, who, spoiler alert, has the lowest WAR across the league in this sense. And we move to the NL Central, and we start with the Cincinnati Reds, and it comes from the glorious of days for the oldest franchise in the 1970s and Joe Morgan in 1975 at approximately 11. A team loaded with Hall of Fame level players, it was Morgan who was the best during their title seasons. One of the greatest seasons ever for a second baseman, he hit 17 home runs and drove in 94 while leading with 132 walks, leading to the best on-base percentage, and OPS and OPS+. He also recorded the highest offensive WAR of his career at 2, which was the 5th best, winning the MVP and recording the game-winning hit in Game 7 of the World Series. And with the division with 4 teams that have been there since the beginning, there's a player who was there at the start for the Pittsburgh Pirates, that being Honus Wagner in 1908 at 11.8. 1 year before his T206 cards were printed, a player like Wagner, who defined the dead ball era, had his best season in 1908, when he won his 6 of 8 batting titles, leading in hits, doubles, triples, RBIs, steals, and OPS, while hitting a career high in home runs at a whopping 10. There was no MVP voting in the time, though he obviously should have won. And we go to the St. Louis Cardinals, who have plenty of possible names, but it comes from around the same time, with Rogers Hornsby in 1924 at 12.2. He started his career being a contact hitter like others in the time, but once hitting home runs became cool, he decided to do both. And he put it all together in 1924, as he hit 424 with 25 home runs and 94 RBIs with a 1.203 OPS, as he led in about every category except home runs and RBIs. And he actually did not win MVP, as it went to pitcher Desi Vance on the National League champion Brooklyn Robins, though he would win MVP the next year after he hit 400 for the 3rd time. And we move to the Chicago Cubs for the craziest part of all of this, in the fact that Rogers Hornsby is also the all-time WAR leader here with an 11 WAR in 1929. He didn't go straight from the Cardinals to the Cubs, instead going to the Giants and the Braves first, and with the Braves facing financial pressure, they would trade him to the Cubs, where he hit 380 with a 1.139 OPS with 39 home runs and 149 RBIs, to go with his 229 hits. This will give him his 2nd MVP, as he would help the Cubs win the pennant, though they would lose to the Philadelphia Athletics. And we move to the final team in the NL Central, and the only team in the division that wasn't there in the 1800s, that being the Milwaukee Brewers, and it comes from their most successful season, with Robin Yount in 1982 at 9.8. He would record the most hits in the league, but he did not win the batting title behind Willie Wilson, but he still led in doubles, slugging percentage, OPS, and OPS+, finishing 5th in defensive WAR at 1.9. As with the Brewers in the American League, he would win the AL MVP, helping them win the AL East, then win the franchise's only pennant, though they would lose the World Series to their future division rival in the St. Louis Cardinals. The NL Central is full of players from long ago, with Rogers Hornsby at the top, and also tied at 3rd with Joe Morgan, who was behind Honus Wagner, with Robin Yount the most recent at 5th. And we move to the final division in the National League West, and we start with the Colorado Rockies. As mentioned earlier, the reason Craig Biggio didn't win MVP in 97 is because of Larry Walker, whose 9.1 WAR in 97 is the highest in franchise history. He would lead the league in home runs at 49 with his 130 RBIs and a 366 average, which actually put him at 2nd behind Tony Gwynn for the batting title. But he had the best on base, slug, and OPS, as he would win MVP. People would note that Walker played in Coors Field, but he actually hit 29 of his 49 home runs with a 1.176 OPS on the road, which went a long way in his recent Hall of Fame induction. And we move on to the San Diego Padres, with Kevin Brown in 1998 at 9.6. In an era with pitchers like Pedro Martinez, Randy Johnson, and the 3 in Atlanta, Brown was overshadowed, with his first and only season in San Diego being his best, as he pitched 257 innings with a 2.38 ERA, a 1.07 WHIP, a league best 2.23 FIP with a 5.2 K to walk ratio. As he finished third in Cy Young voting, though head-to-head he was better than Tom Glavine. It was the win total that gave it to Glavine, as Brown held the Padres make the World Series, though they would lose to the Yankees, in an underrated career that led to him receiving less Hall of Fame consideration. And we move to the San Francisco Giants for the name you would expect, with the only question being what season. And it was 2002 for Barry Bonds at 12.7. 1 year after hitting 73 home runs, he was somehow better. No matter how you feel about Bonds and how he did it, it's the fact that he got so few pitches to hit that makes it all so impressive, as he was walked 198 times that year, and still hit .370 with a 1.381 OPS, with 46 home runs and a .268 OPS plus, while also only striking out 47 times, as he would win his 5th MVP and his 2nd of 4 straight, as he would make his only World Series after previous postseason struggles, though the Angels would beat the Giants. And we move on to the Dodgers, who like the Giants began in New York, and the player here began in Brooklyn, but had his best season in Los Angeles in 1965 at 10 for Sandy Koufax. Like other pitchers here in the same time, it's the amount of innings that jump out, as he threw a career-high 335.2 innings, with 8 complete game shutouts, as he won the Triple Crown with a 2.04 ERA, while striking out a career-high 382 for a 10.2 K per 9, as he would win Cy Young, and without an insane year by Willie Mays, he would win his 2nd MVP, as he would help the Dodgers win the World Series in what would be his 2nd to last season in a short career that at its peak was maybe the best by any pitcher. And we move on to the last team, in the Arizona Diamondbacks for another left-handed pitcher that had a peak up there with anyone, that being Randy Johnson in 2001 at 10.4. Johnson went to the Diamondbacks in 1999 after being traded from the Mariners to the Astros, and he would hit his peak in his mid-30s, with his most remembered season being 2001, where in 249.2 innings, he had a 2.49 ERA with an ERA plus of 1.88, with the league best 2.13 FIP. And most notably, he struck out 372 batters, almost having as many as Koufax in 80 less innings for a 13.4 K per 9, only behind Garrett Cole in 2019 for starting pitchers who threw at least 200 innings, as he won his 3rd straight Cy Young and would win Co-World Series MVP in the Diamondbacks' first and only World Series title. And the National League West, it is of course Bonds in the lead, followed by Johnson, Koufax, Brown, then Walker. And it is Bonds at the top in the entire National League, with Cardinals Hornsby being the only other to reach 12, with 10 of these 15 seasons resulting in a Cy Young or an MVP. And in the entire MLB, 17 of the 32 seasons would result in Cy Youngs or MVPs, with the average WAR of these seasons being 10.5. Some of these seasons not much of a surprise from all-time players, while others came from a player you wouldn't expect, for reasons like their limited time with the team, or just having no idea they even played for the team. As this season, we will possibly see a Marlin aim for the franchise record, then eventually aim to beat the record on whatever big market team they eventually end up on. Hopefully you liked this video, and if so, please consider liking and subscribing for new videos every week. Thank you.